Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another video on Conqueror's Blade. So we're going to be having, I don't know if I would even go so far as to call this a unit review. We're just going to be playing with the Imperial Archers. Let's just go with that. Oh, what a week it's been. It's just not really gone very well. Starting with that Pavese, I wasn't really very happy with the Pavese video. Obviously, kind of an interesting unit. I kind of enjoy playing them, even though I still don't think they are as good as they once were, and I still think they're a little bit overhyped. But I thought, kind of, let's move on and try and have a look at some of the other ranged units. One that I looked at quite a long time ago was Imperial Archers, and kind of at the same time I'm trying to sort my Keshik video in the background, and that's just going abysmally, and it's just awful. But, you know, woe me. So I moved on to Imperial Archers, and yep, suck with them as well. It's just been one of those weeks where it hasn't really gone to plan. Combine that, I've been away with work all week, so I'm trying to record this in a hotel room on my laptop. This is probably picking up blooming fan noise from the laptop on the microphone. So yeah, it's just been a little bit of a stressful day. But anyway, we have had a few games with the Imperial Archers, and since they were all going so badly, I thought, well, why not let's just have a game and kind of analyse everything we do wrong with the Archers, because I'm not much of an Archer player at the best of times, and yeah, we managed to get ourselves killed quite a few times throughout this match. And it's also kind of interesting to see a little bit of the damage the Imperial Archers can actually do, because they are really quite a high damage unit. But just before we actually hop into the battle, and there goes the phone to ruin the recording a little bit, it's Juriel posting about ranked matchmaking rewards. Damn you. So Imperial Archers, they do have really quite high damage. I've purchased some of the unitary rewards, so it gives me an extra 10% piercing armor penetration boost, which is what puts this really quite so high. I mean, 1700 for an archer unit on that piercing AP is pretty intense, and that really allows you to apply a lot of this very high 1900 damage, and that's what's kind of making them so effective as a unit. They get access to a bodkin arrow, which basically switches to an armor piercing arrow. Piercing greatly increases, but the rate of fire is reduced and damage is reduced. But obviously, because your piercing is increasing so much, your effective damage is also often increasing against more armoured targets. To some extent, I think when you factor in this 1700, I think the benefit of bodkin isn't all that great. Unless you're getting up against sort of properly armoured units. But you do sort of see it, particularly when you start shooting maybe against stalwarts and paladins and slightly more armoured units. Okay, then I think it starts to come in and be a little bit more useful. But against anything sort of mid to middle below, it's really not worth using in my opinion, because the damage increase just isn't really very significant. Obviously, it's gone down the top line. We see a couple of things, which we actually do get that bodkin increase the rate of fire, but the damage, particularly this armor penetration increase here, 15%, which is what's getting me so high here. And that's really quite a critical upgrade, I think. And finally, we'll just quickly hop over to the actual unit tree, because I have some interesting upgrades in the actual tree. And you can see they get that 15% base accuracy increase, which is kind of nice to have, makes them a little bit more accurate. And then I've just been putting into these guild quality arrows. I'll also probably, once I get the honour, put a little bit to get that extra damage. But the fact is that 5% piercing damage, piercing armor penetration increase is just so effective and adds just so much more to their penetration value that makes it such a critical upgrade and makes such a nice difference to the unit. But anyway, let's hop into the battle and just see quite how badly we managed to do. So we are into the battle on Orgolia, my least favourite map, of course. And we've just come off some of the artillery from the back and kind of been shooting at some of the stuff around the walls, and starting to push up with the Imperials. Some guys kind of pushed their way into the A point, and I didn't really want to go fully in with the Archers, because obviously they're still quite a vulnerable unit. They don't have any particularly good defensive stats, and obviously hit points are quite low. So I kind of set them up there so they could just sort of apply their damage through the gap and try and sort of focus their way that way. But the rest of the team does a good job. We actually rack up a few kills with them, because they do hit pretty hard and they do quite a lot of damage in terms of the abilities they use. So I was kind of pleased with that, and we're into the A point. And yeah, all in all, I don't think that as a move was necessarily too bad. I think probably what I could have done differently is earlier on I could have managed to get them a bit further angled off to the side, so that I could have shot over it and sort of into the units camped immediately behind that wall on the A point. So I could have probably made better use of them earlier on in the battle, rather than kind of just sitting at the back sort of plinking away with the cavalry. So with A captured, obviously I'm not going to be wanting to push up the gateway with my archers. I mean, I don't really want to push up the gateway if I've got a melee unit. So we actually managed to get some shots from this short bow. I was kind of pleased with the accuracy of these guys. Unfortunately, not quite enough to kill them, to kill the hero. But you can see, you know, when you start landing a few hot shots like that from like 1,000 to 2,000 a hit, most heroes have only got sort of 20,000 hit points. And it's only sort of 15, 20 hits, and the enemy hero is going to be dead. So I was kind of pleased to be landing shots like that. But as we push up, I was kind of wanted to get the unit back just to resupply, because wanting to wait for the attack to sort of build up a little bit more on the beam point. You know, you can't really get them very easily right at the very top of this tower. At least that's kind of what I was thinking. Although, maybe in hindsight, if I could have just sort of got them to the very tip top of the tower, then I could probably apply quite a lot of damage, particularly at this really close range, because, you know, I really wouldn't have been able to miss with the unit. So I think in hindsight, that probably was a mistake. I finally sort of pluck up the courage to bring the unit up a little bit more. I'm a little bit worried about enemy sort of heroes and ranged units on the D wall, so the wall immediately behind the B point. And of course there's that Watcher there shooting, but realistically with the amount of friendly shields we've got here, I think we should be able to get in there and start to apply damage without too much worry. And as they get up, that is kind of what they start to do. You can see they're starting to do a little bit now, but I've kind of got myself a little bit wedged as they kind of come up. There we go, but you can see them shooting. I immediately try and put my buff on. You know, that's a 15% damage increase, and it makes quite a bit of difference. And you see the kills actually start to rack in relatively quickly. Initially I just leave them on the tower, which was perhaps a little bit cowardly, but I felt they could get some shots there. But really, as we started to push those shields in more and more, I kind of bring them down, start to get them to apply their damage a little bit more, and hopefully they can shoot relatively easily, which they do. And I put Bodkin on, mostly because I felt a lot of the lightly armoured units at this section had kind of been killed already by this point, so I thought I could do more. But we then get hit by, I think it was some of the grenade guys, I think I heard them be thrown. We get away with it a little bit, kind of. I mean, more of the units survived than I probably had a right to. But thankfully we still kind of have 20 of them, so I put them both back and kind of leave them to their fighting. One thing I didn't notice though is, for some reason, I don't know why, they're obviously too close to the wall and they decide not to shoot, and they just stood there staring at the wall. So really poor sort of awareness on my part in terms of sort of micromanaging the unit, because obviously the whole point of this unit is the ability to keep the damage on all the time. That's kind of what I really wanted them to do. And it seemed like they were almost doing it again. I'm not sure why in this situation they weren't auto-aggressing, but I had to sort of start to manually try and aim them at this unit. But pushed way too hard with my hero, got myself killed, and now kind of just relying on the unit kind of shooting by itself and trying to get its damage in. Which thankfully they do. Still in Bodkin mode, so they're shooting a little bit slower, but they are getting some pretty good damage. And, you know, okay, since the start of this match we're up to sort of 55 kills, so not too bad with them now. And they are continuing fine. And I think the damage we did apply at this point, oh, hero kill, has been actually pretty decent. I don't think we've done too badly. I think the lack of awareness looking at the top wall, even though I was kind of worried about it, I got a bit tunnel visioned. And missing those grenades was a shame. You know, to lose those 8 archer units, yeah, really kind of disappointing. I mean, that's not so good, is it? I think I could have done a lot more to avoid that. So I respawned with the unit. I'm thinking, right, well, we've got the B point secure now, but there's still going to be a fight to push forwards and push round. So let's keep going. Let's go back up and try and get my unit back into the fight and see what we can do from there. So I'm heading straight back effectively to the same place where I died, pushing up this part of the B tower here, because I'm thinking about how I'm going to apply this damage and where am I going to get my shots in. Starting to look for my opportunities. I was thinking about going up the D wall, going up over the ladders and being able to shoot down from there. I mean, that would open up quite a few possibilities, but I was also thinking maybe there's quite a bit of stuff retreating from the A point still, and maybe we can get some shots in here. So that's kind of why I come around here initially. What is cool unit to me. They're not super quick, but they are obviously a lot faster than the Pavisa I was using in the video in the earlier of the week. But mostly I decided to target the enemy archers at the back of the map. That's kind of what I'm trying to get hits on. And, you know, actually initially we do, and of course it kills them quite effectively. You know, we're hitting quite hard. It's not a lightly damaging unit, so the damage it does is quite effective. But we then start getting counter-fired. I'm not quite sure where from. I didn't really notice it at the time. Unit of Namkhans, you know, immediately Namkhans just hit super hard for their tier. Start to lose a few more of the units, a lot of them rack up bleed damage. And it sort of puts me in this situation where I don't really know what to do now. And this is obviously my biggest regular problem with the archers is, now what? I feel like if I push back that other way, I'm just going to get killed by those Namcans. I'm a smaller stat than them, and they're taking quite a lot of damage. So all I'm thinking I can do is to try and damage this push. As our team is pushing up the ladders, the enemy is trying to basically drive onto the ladders and to damage them. And my thinking was I'm trying to get to almost to behind them, so I'm getting crits to their back. This seemed the best spot to kind of be aiming from. We buff their damage, and they actually start to lay into them. And we actually start to get quite a lot of criticals because we are by and large behind them. And because I felt they were in a relatively safe position, I felt I could get stuck in with my hero a little bit more. And this is one thing that I often feel I fail to do when I'm controlling archers is make proper use of my hero, because I'm always distracted looking after the archers. And maybe I should have stayed back and looked after the archers, because I come up, didn't notice the flames at all, terrible situational awareness, get myself set on fire and killed. But the archers, you know, we are now up to 90 kills. We've killed about 20 or so people on top of this wall in the time that our archers have been there. And that's really quite good. I'm quite pleased with that. Obviously, I've done enough to actually annoy one of the enemy heroes, because he just jumps down with his longsword on a suicide mission. And thankfully we had this friendly maul here, which enabled my unit to sort of give a little bit of time to take aim. And, oh, there goes the longsword. They do kill heroes quite effectively. At least that's kind of been my experience with them so far. That high penetration means that they apply a good amount of damage to heroes. They actually... I don't know if snapfire is really the right word in this situation, it's not. But they actually fire pretty quickly. They're not like the crossbows where they raise the crossbow, they think about it, and then eventually, 5 seconds later they fire. They actually aim and loose the arrows quite quickly. So I was quite pleased with that. So here we go, spawning in 3rd time now with the Imperials. So I don't know what my biggest weakness through this match has been, but probably has been my hero management. I think probably what I'm doing is so often I'm sort of either staying with the archers to the point where I feel like I have to throw my hero in, and then I'm just throwing my hero in on almost like suicide missions. And obviously that's really not beneficial. Got to be making advantage of my hero, I can't just be standing back the entire time with my archers. But the opportunities I think I picked to get stuck in with my hero really haven't been so good. So anyway, this time round I'm thinking, right, well, let's just get up on top of the D wall. Let's see if we can shoot him from here. Get ourselves up, immediately start getting hit by enemy range. So I'm trying to redeploy, decide to push myself up onto this little tower here to give myself some vantage. There's actually 2 units of enemy archers. Decide to target the Namcans first. I go for the damage buff yet again, and of course, as we land hits, we do quite a lot of damage to them. I don't think it quite one-shots enemy archers in quite the way that the longbows seem to, but it does do quite a lot of damage. Again, just trying to do my quick redeploys to try and avoid the enemy counter-archer fire, and I think for that, I actually do quite well in terms of that fire and manoeuvre, which makes it quite hard for some of the enemy archers to shoot back at me. It's quite hard to aim at archers on a wall like that. But here comes my biggest mistake. I didn't even notice, I didn't even know until my Imperial Archers were completely dead that actually behind me there was a full stack. And so I think, well, given what little time we have left, let's just try and rush the C point. I mean, that's all I felt I could really do. And push on to try and get that bit of damage in, see if we can actually go and capture the point. Seemed to be enough allied support here that it was worth sort of pushing. I know there was sort of stuff behind me back on that main plane that I could have maybe defended. I kind of abandoned some of our teammates' archers there, but it was going to be the end of the game very soon, and I felt like really our only chance at this point, since my own archers were now completely dead, would be to try and grab this C point, which we do manage to do. And it kind of gave us a little bit more time, but unfortunately by this point we were just too far down on units and we could not bring this game back, and that really spells the end of the sort of effective game for me. So that's kind of been my experience of almost every game really for the past sort of a couple of days. Just generally not really been enjoying myself all that much and not really having very many successful games. But anyway, we shall persevere. I'm determined to get these Keshiks done one way or another, and hopefully get a good video on them. So hopefully that might be the next video, if it actually goes to plan. So I hope you all got your fingers crossed for me. But anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed my video. If you have, do let me know what you think in the comments down below. And hopefully we shall see you all on the next video. Thanks for watching, guys, and I shall see you next time.